We thank you, Lord, for today. We thank you for all the blessings. We thank you for the rain. We thank you for the stuff that's going on around us that we're not aware of. And above all, I pray that we just study your word today with a spirit that's directing us to use the material wisely after we leave this room. Be with the ones across the street. They're going to hear a message considering Ruth and all the things that go along with her, that they would get something out of it that would lead them directly to Jesus Christ. And in doing so, they have a saving knowledge of you and desire to study your word more and more. I pray that you watch over the ones that are on that list, that we keep continually putting on there. And that you be with the ones that are traveling, Lord, whether it be to the eclipse sites or just on vacation, that you just guard them and bring them back to us safely. And once again, we just thank you for the opportunity to study your word and for the presence of the Holy Spirit to prick our heart when it's something we need to hear. We ask all these things to be done in your name. Amen. All right. Where did we get to, boss? Page 2.
National on page 207.
207. National. All right. First thing you need to understand with all of this stuff through the book of Romans is that God is going to keep telling people how to get to Him until the very last instant in Christ's arrival. It will never, ever stop. You and I know it is common grace. All right? And if the big deal is with the self part, which we covered last time, as you look at the list, it has to do with salvation, personal. Okay? The next part is national. He'll divide things up this way all the time. Why? Nationalism is something from God. It is not something from man. It is not something to reject. It is something to embrace. It is something to keep an identity that is not desired by anybody outside of Jesus Christ. Okay? The main thing that you have with any of these, what was the main drive of God with nation Israel? What caused Him to create the nation? What caused Him to protect the nation? What caused Him to acquiesce to their request for kings? What was the desire of His heart? I know you've read it. You may not have paid attention to it. He wanted the world to know that He had pulled something out of them, caused it to be an entity which He could directly work with. All right? And that was just a repetitious cycle. When they listened, He could bless them. When they didn't listen, He could curse them.
And He could work with how? Illuminate.
Sure.
How?
Easy. How did He do it? When was the last time you walked around with leadership? There was a pillar of fire during the day and a cloud at night, or vice versa. How many times have you seen that?
You misunderstand me. I don't mean how did He go about doing it. I meant you said because He wanted somebody to work with to do what?
To show the people, show the world that He exists. Okay? Have you ever met anybody that doesn't think there's a God? You have? That's a pretty strange little concept they have going there. They grasp everything around but God, trying to fill the hole that they don't realize exists. All right? He knows that's the nature of the beast, so to speak. He knows that we have that hole. Why? When Adam and Eve were put together, they didn't have that hole. Now they did. Now it had to be filled. Now it is filled by Him every time. But He has to have methods whereby He does it. How do you entice your kids to do what you want them to do when they don't want to do it?
Steal money.
Okay, you buy them off. All right, any other way?
You make it sound fun.
Okay, number one, You kind of make a little bit more enjoyment out of it. How would you do that as far as religion goes? That's a tough nut. Okay?
You bring in entertainment. You make it fun.
I do. You know how you do that? You make a Sunday school lesson apply to the age group. No matter what the age group is, you can make it apply. Then you take it and experientially let them see how it works. Okay? You know the neatest way that I taught my kids to give things away is when when you do jobs like I do, people have things they don't want anymore. They just don't. They've worn them out or they don't want them. So I would receive them. Okay? And then I would find a home for them. So that they had watched this over the years. Somebody would say, I need a door. She needs a door. She needs a front door. I haven't found the right front door yet, but by golly, if the feelers are out there, God knows it's out there, right? That's right. All right? She could just tell the temperature by the cracks in the door. It's not a problem. Oh, it's still hot out. Okay. So, but the thing of it is when I find it, it will go to a home. Well, in doing so, my kids saw that. And what did they do? They ended up having friends that needed things. So what did they do? They went to the ordering counter. Me. Said, Dad, we need a table with some chairs. And I said, okay, I'll let the Lord know. Within sometimes days, I would do a job. And somebody said, hey, I got a chair and stuff out here. Do you want it? And I would ship it off to its new home.
I think a weird one was, hey, we need a mini fridge. And we're all like, oh, okay. And then it was the strangest thing.
Okay, so all I'm telling you is he shows them over and over again that he exists because of experiential programs that he has that show blessings. Okay? And it's beneficial. Josh got hung up in flying in to go lobstering down to the Keys this week. Finally, after all of these years, you know what he said to me? When he was delayed in Denver for hours because of brake problems or something?
With the dog.
With the dog. He said, I wonder what the Lord kept me from. Now, did you turn a corner with your thought processes? Yes, you did. Now you're attributing things to the one that's running your life and not going, this really stinks. I'm really wasting time. You don't do that anymore. You think differently. Well, that's what all of this and all of this is about. And we have it nationally. What is it? Why are we nationally strong? Because we were based in God and His Word to begin with. We're losing that entity now, so it's slipping away. And he kept telling these people, this is going to happen. It happened with the Jews. It's going to happen with the church. You need to listen. And if they didn't listen, he would jog them a little bit. He does that sometimes with natural disasters. He does it with the 5 cycles of discipline, which we'll get through when we get into this some more. Now, number 1 in the national side. Always personal, always national. People live in nations, all right? No nation can possess freedom, prosperity, or blessing apart from the integrity of God. Can't do it. This nation was blessed over and over again. You know how they won the battle with the French in the late 1700s? All you have to do is get some of the old church books. They prayed and prayed and prayed and prayed that the oceans would pick up, crush the French fleet, and then they would be saved from an invasion that would destroy them early on. Pretty close? They were preaching it from the pulpit.
Is that an intercalary prayer?
No, I think it's a preservation. They didn't want anybody hurt. They just wanted the ships to be impeded. Okay? That was the way the prayer was laid out. What happens? You know how hard it is to generate an inverse nor'easter up there that blows from the west out into the ocean? I don't see it too many times on the charts. But in this particular case, it did. And it blew 50 ships 500 miles out into the ocean. And they ran out of food, so they had to go home. Now these people to go, boy, that sure was lucky. You know what they had after that? a whole week of prayer, thanking the Lord for His providence. National, national, national. It is imperative. He blesses nations. He doesn't bless globs. All right? Number 2, adjustment meant salvation, rebound, confession, and maturity. These are the things that happen to a country. Now that they're talking about tearing down the Jefferson Memorial. Okay? I mean, you know, Jefferson, he was just a real. But Jefferson, the one that they kept calling a deist, which I don't think fits too well because he used the term God and his sovereignty enough times to sink a ship, that he knew what this country was based on. He knew how this country came about, even if he didn't give full credit to it. All right? So, 3, God can only bless under grace conditions. What does that mean? What are grace conditions? That's a strange word. How do you use it? What is a grace condition? He can only bless me when I let Him do what He's supposed to do and I stay out of the way.
Which is why, from every kind of direction, worded many different ways in many places, comes the deal about pride. There's about 6 different forms of pride, and because it ends up getting in the way, partly what you're talking about right there is still pride. And it's false pride, because it gives anybody the idea that they did it and God hasn't done it.
Right. And here's the trigger, right here. Not mine. Oops. Not mine. There's the trigger for grace. Every time. You realize how much you depend on the righteousness of Jesus Christ? The more you realize that, the better you're going to function in grace. Period. There's no way to get around it. And the more you study it, the more you're going to see it come out. The more you go through Acts, the more you see it. We were doing a little thing in Acts yesterday, and we read one verse, and it was about the lady at the well. Okay? And Jesus told her something very specific. Told her she had how many husbands? 5 husbands, right? Well, what did she tell him about the last one?
He wasn't her husband either.
Correct.
Is that what?
The last one wasn't her husband. So here we think it's really in vogue to shack up. But this chick at the well, she had 5 of them rascals, she was shacked up with the one she had right now. And please understand something. Jesus did not condemn her for that. Why? Why would He not condemn her for that? You know where He was headed when that conversation took place? He was headed to a place called Gethsemane. He was headed for another place called the cross. What did He know was going to happen at the cross? All of those sins that He would have condemned her for were going to be taken care of. Phenomenal program.
The reason He didn't get on her was because even if He did, she wouldn't have been able to do anything about it under her condition.
Yeah, right.
So He didn't waste His time on that, but yet He was gentle in pointing out the situation.
But it did not hesitate her from listening to Him, did it?
No.
There was no condemnation in His voice, because what did she do when she went back to town?
Told everybody,
Don't-
found somebody who knows everything I did.
Yeah, and he didn't run me over. And to top that off, he was a Jew. You understand what I'm saying? Here's what these people don't understand. A nationality means something to them. It meant something to the Jew. It meant something to the Greek. It means something to us. Okay? I mean, we've got a problem in this country, and people don't see it because they've been blinded to it for a long time. All right? Now, number 4. Social, economic, and political reforms apart from the integrity of God are useless, meaningless, and create great problems, including tyranny. I mean, you just got a problem going on here. And in this particular case, the Romans had it. What did the Romans have a problem with? Anybody know what Rome's biggest problem was over the 500 or 600 years that they ran the world? There was a cluster of people. Yeah!
What?
Barbarians.
Oh.
Barbarians.
Or the Visigoths.
The Visigoths, all kinds of different, a bunch of different people. And why was that a problem?
Would you call them the worst of gods?
They kept getting invaded.
Say
Kept
again?
getting invaded.
Correct. Over and over again, they invaded them. They kept sneaking in the back corners and little edges and coming in and stripping off people and stripping off stuff. Now, please understand something. That's not a nice thing to have happen to a country. But at this particular time, what was taking place when that was happening? They would take people back captive. What was the purpose of the captivity? I went out, whooped somebody, and now I have a bunch of slaves. The only problem they had was the slaves they took belonged to JC. So what were they doing? These barbarians didn't have a clue. They were collecting missionaries. Not a clue. And who did the missionaries work on? Not the big leader, the wives. Do you know how many kings were whooped because their wife became a Christian? Nationality means something. What was it that was going out of here? The nation that you're talking about here is the church. Phenomenal.
In the Middle East today?
Yeah. What are you going to do with the Middle East? You can't do anything with the Middle East.
There's a peculiarity that I noticed about just before the Greeks, the nation that was in control.
Okay.
Persia, under Cyrus.
Okay.
He took a different tack than Rome and some of the other countries. He didn't end up destroying them, he conquered them, but he conquered them in place and
Correct.
allowed them to continue but serving him.
Correct.
Which was kind of a direct opposition to the way that other nations were doing.
Well, and that's okay. But here's the deal with any of that. The whole thing of this particular planet all has to do with advantages of Jesus Christ. However he did it. Again, how come Daniel was so significant in the Bible? Oh, he had all these visions. No, that has nothing to do with it.
He stood by God. I mean, he wouldn't eat the food, and they prayed about it. So then God softened the hearts of the people that oversaw him. Said, "Okay,
Bingo.
we'll give you this. We'll do a test." And they were very healthy, so they allowed them to continue and prosper.
Phenomenal.
Right.
And not even that. The best part of the overarching story is you would not have had wise men looking for Jesus Christ thousands of years later had it not been for that young man in that lion's den.
Of course, reading the king's mind didn't hurt.
Period.
Reading the king's mind didn't hurt.
Well, no. I mean, those are pretty good pluses on your resume.
Joseph.
You know? But
Joseph.
exactly.
Same thing.
Exactly. So what I'm saying is, you have to understand he has a nationality for a reason. He has a church for a reason. He has a country for a reason. Has to have a client nation. We're that now. Who's coming? We don't know who's next. And understand, tyranny comes about every time that you give up all your freedoms. Because you have less and less to say about what's going on in your life. What does Jesus Christ tell you? He tells you, never tells you what to do. He tells you how to do it. Here's how you can fix this. He says, I have a way to save you from eternal damnation. I will not put you in that way, but I will show you that way. That's not tyranny, that's freedom.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but I think that has to do with the fact that he gave us a gift, and he doesn't ever violate his gift. He gives us the power of the freedom
And
of choice.
True, but it's not even that. An essence that is perfect and covers all the ramifications of who God is can never have an ulterior motive. It is always a pure motive. We're the benefits of a pure motive. Salvation is for one purpose and one purpose only. To save us from what was inevitable, because he still wants us to be part of him.
Because that glorifies him.
Exactly. Never ever does that change. Whatever you go through, however you go through it, you either glorify God by what you go through, or you stumble through it and you have to maybe do it again. But you belong to him. You will glorify him in some fashion.
Every knee will bow.
Yeah, I mean, it just doesn't get any different than that. All right? Flip a page here, we'll see what we're getting into. Now, here's the rest of this stuff. And it's kind of, we'll get to the lesson, but this is where we were talking about the cycles of discipline. Worse than an atheist, they choose to ignore the existence of God, which is what our country is trying to do now. I mean, we've even got, it doesn't matter, we've got a bunch of weirdos out there right now. But here it is, here's something. 5 cycles, see 5 cycles. Okay. Tyranny brings about chaos, revolution, national degradation, eventual destruction under the 5th cycle of discipline. Anybody not see that in the news? Open your eyes when you read the newspaper. Open your eyes when you look at the TV. Understand something. It is not surprising our God, our Jesus, our Holy Spirit, one bit. All right? Here's the 5 cycles, which are mentioned over and over in different parts of the Bible, usually by saying Babylon conquered such and such, Persia conquered such and such. These are cycles of discipline on nations. All right? Cycle 1, loss of health, decline of agricultural prosperity, terror, fear, death in combat, loss of personal freedoms due to negative volition towards Bible doctrine. That's just cycle 1. See anything familiar in there? Go try to find an orange hanging on a tree that doesn't look like the wrath of God. What are people afraid of now? For the first time since I was in elementary school and learned how to hide under my desk, which all that figured that did was get me closer to kissing my rear end goodbye, people are afraid of bombs again. Why? They're depending on the world to take care of them. They can't do it. Not even possible. All right? Cycle 2, economic regret or recession, depression, increased personal individual discipline for continued negative volition in spite of the first warning. They don't pay attention to anything that went on ahead. How many of you learn from your mistakes?
Right.
Anybody really good at it? I watched a really interesting, they had a summation of weather changing history and the Challenger explosion and all the things that went through that, and it had Gene Thomas on there. The guy above him never told him, or the gentleman was Steve, I think was his other name, the other guy, never told them that there was a problem with the oil lamps. Never told the 2 guys just below him that were operations and whatever else they did. I don't remember what Gene's title was, but they never told him the information that he had from the engineers telling him that these O-rings were not expanding properly because of cold temperatures. Yeah. And all I'm saying is there's deception everywhere. You really have to be paying attention a little bit closer and watching all sides of something before you make decisions. It's just kind of a sad thing. But it's just, now the 3rd cycle is violence, breakdown of law and order, all right? Severe restriction of travel and commerce. Now before I thought we were right there at 1 or 2. I'm thinking we lopped over into 3 there, unfortunately, because I'm seeing all these things being done that match up with what's going on here. 2 more policemen were shot in Kissimmee. Okay? So, and everybody says, you know, what's wrong with the people? They can't learn from what's going on, so there's no way they're going to come to a good conclusion. Remember the little chart we put up here like this, where you put in a situation up here and you make a decision along the way and you come out with a conclusion, and that God tells you there's a way out in midstream where you can see that this is bad, you need to get out. These people have no concept of that idea. You and I can pull out of a bad decision anytime we so desire. The Holy Spirit can show us a way. A way. All right? So, 4th cycle, military conquest, foreign occupation, scarcity of food, reduced to 1/10 of normal supply, separation of families. See, now, we haven't gotten there.
Venezuela.
Correct. It's everywhere. And the thing of it is it doesn't take a genius to start putting pieces together that have reality-based conclusions and not just a series of words on the page. All right? And then the fifth side. Yes, sir.
Pretty red old flag of what
Go ahead.
The one country that stands out prominently on all of these is Russia.
Correct.
The Soviet Union.
Correct.
And in fact, number one is the beginning of number 5.
Correct. Exactly.
Plus, they're making it worse on themselves.
Exactly.
Did you see it in the news
Oh,
where
yeah.
they said they're going to tighten down completely on every other form of religion except the state one?
But that's where you see they're not learning from anything that took place before. Okay? You know what I did after I whacked my finger?
Probably.
I went, no. First I went like this, and I went inside, and then when I came home, I went and got a nail and put it in the tree, and now the swing hangs up out of the way. I will never do that again. I learned from my lesson, and I don't do that. Go ahead, you're going to
I
say
was
something?
going to say that you said fourth cycle hasn't happened yet. But every day you read about how in families, separation of family, children are being stolen.
Right. And you will see let's put it this way. These are not break-off transitions, okay? You flow into the next cycle of discipline, okay? A little dribs and drabs, families being ruined. Yeah, that's been happening for 50 years since the welfare state started. Once you could download kids and make money off of them, that show was going right to the top.
That was the next.
That's just like having prostitutes at church that they did in Corinth. Church was a popular place to go.
That's what I was fixing to say.
Yeah.
What you're saying right there, there is a really, really bad condition.
Sure.
The operation right now
Mhm.
has been operating through the history of our country. It's summed up by the name gradualism. You can get
Sure.
a country to tolerate anything you want in any way, shape, or form, as long as you introduce it gradually.
What was Judge Bork's title to his book? Sliding towards Gomorrah.
Right.
Yeah, he didn't say running. Okay? Anybody ever slid off a roof before? You start out slowly. Okay? All right? And then the ride it's an e-ticket by the time you're capping off the edge of that roof. Okay? And when you do it, there's not a lot of thought process going into any of that.
She didn't even look up.
No,
Just
I
sat
mean,
there and
that's just,
smiled.
you know, you just, and pretty much that's what countries do. Because there's not enough people that have an overview of it. I watched a little special on the Sistine Chapel, and I watched another special on Troy. There was one gentleman in Troy that was I think he was the prophet or the priest of, like the pastor, if you want to call it, that didn't want them to take the horse in. You know what they did to him? Threw him in jail. Oh yeah. One guy. Now, if I'm not mistaken, the Lord only has to tell you once that there's a way out. He's not, there's nothing on his chart that says I gotta tell you 42 times. After once, if you're not listening, there's no reason to make him think you're gonna listen down the road.
No, what makes me love him even more is the fact that he does a lot of times.
Oh, yeah.
More than once.
It's called grace, but it's not an option. It doesn't have to. Go ahead.
Well, when you were talking about sliding, you know, I see it as like with 9/11, everybody rallied to that and had their moment of silence. There was
Yeah.
a gathering, there was a unity there. But that was an instantaneous, boom, here's evil, you know,
Right.
unmistakable. But what we're not seeing is like the gradualism is, it's more like erosion.
Oh, sure.
It's just gradually taking
Peeling
things
away,
away,
yes,
taking
exactly.
things away. So that's how evil will often work.
And if you're not wise enough to see it, you can be part of the program instead of stepping back and stepping away from it. And understand, you are His. you're welcome. You walk with him right through the mess. Okay? You just, I don't know. It's amazing how it's all down in print. Nobody seems to want to read it. And then you can also check in Deuteronomy for the 5 cycles. I put that so you can track it down if you want to. Where the listings are not progressive, but a specific part of the same curse. 49 begins with a description of the 5th cycle of discipline. The 5th cycle means the Lord's done. If and when the cycle hits America, the client nation status that we now do have, because there is a remnant big enough to keep it, will be pulled. Okay, as it was pulled from Jerusalem, or from Israel, as it was pulled from England, as it was pulled from France, as it was pulled from Germany. They were all different places that had it, and it was pulled when they got so far from it that it was not usable by the Lord anymore. That's all there is to it. And that's what they're talking about here. And then the last part of this is, therefore, human good, the plans, the schemes of socialism, the functions of the welfare state are doomed to disaster. Anybody that's seen the numbers on the welfare state, I don't know how many billions we've dumped into that. Probably there's more today than there was with Johnson. But, it's just crazy. So it's just...
And the rationale is we haven't thrown enough money at it.
Yeah, exactly. And that's pretty much how it is with everything. I was reading a history book the other day about Florida, and when they started the school system in 1853. All right? You know how much the school board had to work with for the whole year? $5,800.
Billions.
How you doing? You be planting a garden every year, let me tell you, okay? So you see what I'm saying? So you can see exponentially, they keep telling us there's not enough, there's not enough, there's not enough. But those educations they got back there, and some of the stuff was phenomenal. You had to have Latin, you had to have Greek, you had to know all the big names in the science of the time. Before you even went to, you could, if you didn't have all that, you couldn't even go to school. Yeah.
So they could read the Bible.
Correct.
Because Hebrew was gone, so it was in Latin.
Correct. So it's just really interesting of what was desired of them, okay? And then here's the deal, and you look at the little asterisk for this last one. No welfare state has ever survived historically. We know that for a fact. Watch France during the Revolution, and it was a mess. Schemes of self-righteousness from the Mosaic Law. Everything Israel did or has done or has tried is tried by the church over and over again. Why? Because they didn't realize what the 10 Commandments in Israel was about. It wasn't about having a nation that became good. It was about having a nation that showed up bad on the schedule every time, and God still blessed them. But they can't figure that out.
Would part of that be the fact that when people study the Bible, they don't look at the Old Testament as something that would apply to us? Because we're not going to go kill a cow, we're not going to go do, but they like, oh, it's just stories, John, the way.
Well, yeah,
it's
that's
not
very,
something that
that's
we
very
can actually
possible.
use as practical in many cases.
Correct. I
Just,
don't
oh,
know.
we're all about Jesus, there's no,
It's
I know.
the Old Testament, come
Oh,
on.
I know.
Yeah.
Here's what they-
This is the new
It's the
improved.
terminology again. I knew it.
Bobby,
How about the new improved Old Testament? Would that be better?
that was a book that we,
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Everybody wants to get a real handle on historical thought.
Yes.
Keep that one up.
Called The Fourth Turning. A couple of guys wrote it that were...
Jews.
No. Hmm?
A couple of Jews.
Yeah, and they were just curious about the cycles of how there's 4 cycles to things, and you've got the one that starts something, the one that lives under it and perfects it a little better, the ones that get tired of it, and the ones that abuse it, and then you start the cycle again. About an 80 to 100 year cycle, something like that. The only thing that interrupts it is tremendous natural disasters. Civil War screwed up the cycle. Revolutionary War.
The fourth turning actually.
World War II.
World War II.
Two, yes.
We're coming up to the fourth turning.
Yeah, we should be coming up to the 4th cycle where the ones, and you'll find it, the ones that were raised by free lover parents are finding out that's not such a good system, and they're going back and starting to look for God again. Only not necessarily the way that mom and dad, no, grandma and granddad looked for God, and they're going for something that meets their needs, which will be probably their phone, their computers. Yeah, I mean, it'll be, the next generation. Please understand something. That does not preclude Jesus Christ from using it. Okay? He doesn't change. His vehicle changes again and again and again. Just because I like old church music, if people that like the new church music, that's fine, but don't tell me I have to listen to it. Okay? I don't want the 7-Eleven music. I'm sorry, I don't like it. When I have to sing the same 7 words 11 times, I'm done with it. I got it after the first one. Okay? So all I'm saying is, it's out there. That's wonderful for people that just think that's great to stop their feet and, go for it. But I like my Jesus just the way I like my Jesus. If he shows me something different, by golly, I'll do it.
You were saying in the thing here that the welfare state's doing, I noticed what you were talking about. This pattern, this thing that everybody reveres in this country, comfort and freedom to do things, is actually, it's an imprison. It's a prison, because it causes us to lose our skills. We forget how to do stuff, and then we also turn to the government to do the things we used to know how to do. And the more we turn to the government, it has to be paid for.
Well,
So
yeah,
then
sure.
it becomes more and more expensive, and ultimately you end up in a situation where we are now, where we're printing money that's not based on anything.
Well, right, but
It's
that's
gonna
not even,
collapse.
that's a given. I'm not worried about any of that. You know why I'm not worried about any of that? Because when it collapses, something else is going to take its place.
And I'm not looking forward to that.
I could give a rip. I can take a chicken out back and free him from his head and have something to eat in a minute.
Well, that's what I'm talking
That's,
about.
I mean, it's just,
You were not-
there's not a reason to, he gave me every opportunity. I realize how the world works. I don't care who's in charge. I don't care. It just kills me that the guy that made president, that has some of the desires I have, is being thwarted at every turn. But it does not surprise the guy that I belong to. Okay? It doesn't. Somebody's going to pay the piper. All right? And if the other guys get in and we go down the tube, I still belong to Jesus. I'm sorry. It is just not. I like to know the information, but it does not affect what I do from day to day. Doesn't change me studying. Doesn't change me struggling through Greek and Hebrew. Doesn't change any of that.
You know
Why? I'm doing that because this guy here told me that the guy I'm looking to all the time is the guy I should hook my wagon to, and I did. And when I hooked my wagon to him, he's pulling the wagon. You know what we remembered? We had some pictures. My son found somebody that does art and sent him a picture of Tingley's, the old Tingley's, just the fish camp, just the building, nothing else. And he's painting these and selling them. Well, Josh saw it and whatever. Josh didn't realize that was his address for a year while we were building the house. We lived at Tingley's in a little travel trailer, okay? But it just triggered something in him, and then we told him all this stuff. And he does remember Kathy putting him in the red flyer, or what's the radio flyer wagon, and taking him over to Mom's to do laundry. Put those two in there, and I told them, they were sitting there just laughing up a storm, and I said, and they said, well, we had bedrooms in the trailer, in the travel trailer. You know what it was? Took the back bunk, I covered a piece of plywood with carpet and put it betwixt them, and that's where they slept. Okay? I mean, this was nice living, okay? You could wash the dishes, go to the bathroom, and sweep the floor all at the same time. It was slick as a whistle, all right?
Oh, that's a picture.
But that was all, but I told them, the thing that I knew, the reason I knew that they had been imprinted on that was, after we got the house built, their bedrooms did the same thing. Upstairs, when you're upstairs in the house, the two kids' bedrooms are right here, okay? Every morning for 6 months, when Kathy and I got up and go out, here's Josh and here's Allie sleeping in the doorpost, head to head. Why? Because they had slept in the little travel trailer with their heads right at the corner of the thing. the whole time. Well, it took a while to break that pattern. But what I'm saying is, this is all part of what we are. He gave us things that we didn't realize we could have. All because we didn't mind being a little off-center. Okay? And all I'm saying is that these people don't realize it, and you need to realize what you have in Christ. You need to realize that all the things that He gives you is protection from what the world doesn't want you to have. He's all over that. You are exceedingly special to Him. And with all these things going on, fifth cycles of disciplines are really interesting, but I would just assume observe them from the outside. All right? That's all. And it doesn't mean it can't be changed. If people get on their knees, don't do the Chronicles verses. What a load of. Just tell them, look, I belong to you. Whatever you produce, I belong to you. And I'm putting everything I have in you. And He says, gotcha. That sounds like you're not worried about how you're going to do it. You're worried about what I'm going to do. Not even worry anymore. What is it? Dependence. You're dependent on the guy that said He would take care of you. And when you genuinely depend on Him, there's not a whole lot of things you can worry about. And that's what they're talking about. Now here we go. It's going to get a little grumpy here for them.
I heard a good description this week. The guy was saying about following Jesus. Would you rather follow the train or would you rather be on it?
Yeah.
And just rest in Jesus.
That word abide that you see, meno, over and over and over again, has so many ramifications that you and I can't even begin to understand. Cannot begin to understand. I wish I could. I wish I could get a better grasp on it, but as hard as I try wrestling with it, it's just way more than I'll ever be able to comprehend. Verse 19 is starting to get a little bit more grumpy for the world. All right? Now we know that whatever the law says, it says to those who are under the law, which is not you, by the way, okay? That every mouth may be stopped and all the world may become guilty before God. One thing that has to be established before you go any further into the salvation story is He has to condemn the whole pile for salvation to be accessible to everybody. All right? Which means there is nobody out there that's qualified for anything, and He made sure of that. So that's what we're about to get into. The true purpose of the Mosaic Law is what these next two verses are going to wrestle with. And they're totally not what the world portrays them to be, all right? Barnhouse had found an English translator, Phillips, and he said, he put it this way: we know that the message of the law is for those who lived under it. All right? That is whom? Nation Israel. Nobody else. Okay? Acts, Romans, all the Galatians, Philippians, all the way through Thessalonians, every one of them has a little snippet in there that says you are under no form of law as a Christian believer. None. You shouldn't even, it's going to be awful to sound. The Ten Commandments is wonderful for on your wall, but Christ took care of it when He died on the cross.
Yeah, good way.
Does that make sense?
Marilyn Hickey says that if you're following the two commandments, love God and love your neighbor, the other 10 become promises.
Okay.
You won't want to lie. You won't want to steal. You won't want to commit
That
adultery.
sounds pretty close to being good. Okay? I mean, it's just, all I'm saying is that it's not something, you know, I understand Judge Roy Moore was really nice. They championed him for keeping the Ten Commandments. He would have been way further ahead doing other things. But what is, you know, knowledge is a scary thing when you don't know what to do
The
with
thing
it.
is, the commandment says, the first commandment is to love God with all your heart, mind, soul, spirit, and strength. And if you do that,
Right.
the Bible also says you are fulfilling the law. But the problem is,
Sure.
we can't do it. So even the Jewish people,
Yeah.
who we now consider were under the law,
Yeah.
they were actually, in a way, kind of under grace, because even
Well, they were always under grace.
provisions
Correct.
provided a
Correct.
ceremony that you
They
can go
they were
and
under
get your
grace,
sins
just not the
rolled
grace
back.
that you and I recognize.
That's that ceremony that allowed them to roll their sins back.
Correct. But understand something, when we read earlier in Romans, that there was a part that said anybody that would keep the law would be saved. That is a statement made out of a sovereign head, knowing that nobody can keep the law. You can't. Time to roll? Sorry. Oh, okay.
They call it the impossible law.
Okay, so but at any rate, it says that no living man can think himself beyond the judgment of God. That's what you do with self-righteousness. You try to get past that.
Hey, Bob.
Yes.
So the verse that says that we're not under any
Form,
form of law.
manner of law.
That includes man's laws.
Yes, it does, except for you have to marry it with governmental law, because God did institute government. He instituted government through Rome, and he did that so that he could have laws, so that he could have Christ go through the laws and have the laws beat him up so that you could see the laws weren't going to come to a good end. Does that make sense? Did you write that down? Because I don't know whether I can say it again. Okay? It's on tape. Yeah. You understand what I'm saying? Kathy always tells me I'm not allowed to speak because it's against the law.
And then I say. the
I'll get
Bible
out and
verse-
walk.
No.
No, okay,
That's
all right.
not. The Bible verse, obey them that have the rule over you, and they set that law.
Correct. Only thing is, when they gave me the book, they said you can drive for conditions.
They
Now, is that
probably-
rationalization, or is that?
Yes.
They probably only meant slower, not faster.
Oh, okay, all right. But yeah, that's where I don't, and most of the time, anytime you have a conflict with laws, it's where law tells you to do something contrary to what God said is imperative of you. If the courthouse comes and said, you deny who you believe, or you're going to jail, you do not have to honor that.
Isn't it interesting?
Okay, and I thought about that too, because speeding, I'm driving for conditions. If there is nobody on the road at 2:30 in the morning, and I come to a red light, should I stop at the red light and stay at the red light for that required 2 hours and 14 minutes that it takes to change the green?
Yes.
Before I move on?
Yes.
Don't
Yes.
follow me around.
Isn't it?
That is the dumbest thing, because what does my mind say? Nobody here, I'm an intelligent adult, this is as good as a stop sign. I can do a 4-way stop and be out of this thing in no time at all.
But you don't stop at some signs.
Some of them I do. Only when they should be yield signs.
You don't get to pick.
Hey, Bobby.
I think I'm going to stop shoveling now, because I think the hole's getting a little too deep. So,
Isn't it,
what'd you do, talk to her before you came into class, or what?
hey, Bobby?
What's he going to do, pick up his $5 on the way out the door? But all I'm saying is you just have to pay attention to, and generally, yes, laws are made by man. Man is honored by God, as long as they don't infringe on him. That appears to be the way it's written in the Bible. Now, if you know anything different, let me know. Okay, but I can't find anything other than that. And I'm sure, if there's a couple of sticks thrown on the fire because I went too fast, I'll buy them, Yes, ma'am? Okay.
I'm thinking it, but I
Yes,
just
sir.
like.
I was just thinking of, like, there was a stop sign I used to go, it was at the bottom of the hill, and you could see all four directions, and I'd go right through it. But if a policeman sees you doing it, you're gonna nail it. So
Right.
technically, it's the law.
Yeah.
But I once had a policeman tell me that,
He's on the same page I'm on.
But just because no one sees you doesn't mean it's okay to do it.
yeah, but it just seemed senseless, this, you can see it for a mile,
Hey,
why stop?
hey, let me have that shovel.
But the point I was gonna make is, I talked to a policeman once, and he said that technically they could get you for breaking the law
Yes.
anytime, anywhere.
I know.
They can come up with some law that you're breaking, you know what I mean, just so.
Maybe the point is to set an example for those
Yeah,
who
that-
don't have that wide open perspective, so you set them as an
Yeah,
example. Like your children that you're trying to teach how to drive.
I
In other
think,
words, if somebody's with you.
I think we're off the reservation there. I'm sorry, I apologize. I'm gonna stop at every stop sign that I see.
You're out of time. You're out of time.
There you go. All right, Mrs. Adams said I'm almost out of time, so here's the deal. Here's when it talks about the first words of this particular sentence, we know, okay? You see what the word, you see the Greek word there? No, it's not. It's oida. And oida is something that everybody has. It's general knowledge. You know how to start your car. All right, doesn't mean you do it well. Doesn't mean you've ever done it. But I read the book and I knew what to do. All right? So here's the deal. Everybody knows particular items is what they're talking about here. It's talking about we, Paul and other believers, cognizance and comprehension. Yes, ma'am. It's not 10 yet. Cognizance is what?
Awareness.
Aware. Okay? It's knowing it and know you know it. All right? And then the next part of it, comprehension. What is that? You know something, now you know how to use it.
Application.
There you go. I now know Jesus Christ and I know how to apply Jesus Christ. So now I am in a category apart from the world. Always. But the world will come to you for questions to be answered. Why? Same thing as everybody. There's a honking hole in them that needs to be filled, and for some reason they see that hole filled in you, but they don't know why. And that's what you're working with here. And it's talking about a conjunction. But it says, coming from an understanding of the Bible doctrine, perfect present denotes the continuation of existing results. What's that mean? I never can unknow what I know about the Bible. You're going to build on it and build on it and build on it and build on it. What do they call you out at the Space Center when you at the top of the pile? When you learned it all and you're getting up the way. What is there a name for it? Top dog. Is there a name like you end up being the operations manager, or I'll shut up so you can think.
CEO? Subject matter expert. That's what they call it.
Holy free
Subject, so you have a subject matter, you're the expert of that.
Okay,
matter.
well then that'll work then. That'll be good enough. All right. So what you understand what we're saying? You, in your study of doctrine, you become the subject matter expert. People seek out in his profession, if they've got something that's caused a snag, they find that guy and they get it untangled. The world's going to do that with you. You don't have an option. Why? You belong to somebody that needs to have you walking around with a functioning brain and a functioning mouth that can functionally tell somebody what you have in Jesus Christ and how He deals with things. Any other way is just, it doesn't exist. Okay? There's people that, how many of you are hands-on? You have to do it to know it. How many of you can read it and be good with it? Give me a picture.
Yeah.
Okay? That's the deal. You are the guy that they go to, girl that they go to, office worker, construction worker, whatever the case might be. You're the critical, you're the interaction part of that shooting match. And that's why they do it this way. And what does it talk about? It says this conjunction talks about something here. Indicates the content of perception. All right? Why do I want to know doctrine? Number one, you better know that God has a plan. And why does He have a plan? Because He has a plan that was put together way back there, and now He needs foot soldiers to get that plan out.
I don't know what I'm doing, and I need a clue.
Well, you don't at the beginning, but you should now.
Yeah.
Okay? It's not a problem.
Well, even
I'm out of time, I'm
along
sorry.
the way, David said.
Go ahead.
Go ahead.
Yeah.
I was just gonna say, the more you know, the more peace it gives.
Oh, sure. Yeah, you're a lot more comfortable in the job.
The closer you get.
Yeah. The guy that Al's talking about, he doesn't have as much angst when there's a problem brought to him. Why? He's encountered the problem before. He's had somebody that's encountered the problem that's brought him a result before. He's got all this pile of loot that he can disseminate to somebody that needs it. Same thing with you. There's a peace about having answers. Okay, not questions. These people that say, well, don't bring me the problem, bring me the solution. Well, if I had the solution, you ding-dong, I wouldn't need you above me.
Oh, stop, you're being reasonable.
Yeah, so, okay, so I have a problem with that way of doing things, but that's the way the world works, okay? Why? Because they're too stinking stupid or lazy to get the answer, and you have to come up with it for them. Makes them look good. All right? Personal note. Yes, sir. Oh, yeah. Oh, is one of them coming loose? All right, I'll bring my drill next week. All right. Oh, I don't think I have that. I got my pocket knife, we can probably tighten it up. All right.
If you're talking about answers to that phrase that says that smart people, they don't have to be necessarily that smart, they surround themselves with.
Well, that's fine too, but if you're at the top, you better have some answers. Here we go. Ken, Lisa, Mrs. Helton, Peter, Alyssa, Debbie, Amy, Ann, James, Pam, Gina, all the list continually goes on. Church staff and service, the eclipse tomorrow, folks traveling, Glenn's knee, he's doing good. He's tired of being laying down, but he's doing more better. Military men, women, and families, country, and our leadership. What a convoluted mess. Kathy Latosky, through her rehab, is she doing any better? No better. She's kind of status quo, okay? John Ramsey, fluids and health, less drugs, the better, okay? Wallasby, Kristen, job search, out of a job, or we're looking for Washington? Okay, something different. Kathy Koss, breast cancer. Going to M.O. Anderson for treatment plan. Tom and Eden, continue to pray for us with their health issues. Old age is fun. Lila, Ward, off Satan's attacks, continue to follow Jesus, get surrounded by Christian friends, that's not bad. Terry, realize Satan is real, that would probably help. Sean and Cheryl, pastor and active church. And an active church. All right, there you go, gang. Got stuff to work on. Just keep it going, all right? Looks like an alien or something. All right, let's pray now. Thank you, Lord, for today. We thank you for your word. We thank you for the fact that you lay it out for us so simply that our common sense through you is an acceptable vehicle whereby we can apply it when we leave this room. And in doing so, Lord, we give honor and glory to you in everything we say and do for the rest of the week, and I will try to stop at stop signs. Amen.